Tired of the same old at business events? Well, this is not the same as last year. The podcast where we blow up the boring and lead the charge into the attendee-first era of business events. I'm Clare, Forestier, a business event MC obsessed with transforming audiences from passive observers into dynamic participants at events. Each week we'll challenge the conventions, share actionable tips, and hear from fellow event rebels who are mastering the engagement game. Imagine your attendees begging for more after your next event. That's the magic of prioritising their experience. Ready to ditch the dull and create corporate events your audiences will rave about? Then you've found your tribe. Join the movement. Welcome to Not the Same as Last Year.
Hello and welcome to this latest episode of Not the Same as Last Year. Now, I can't believe I've actually got up to episode 21. I'm super proud of myself. And I want to look this time at the different ages of people coming to our events. You probably have heard people talk recently about the 5 generations in the workplace right now. It's fascinating, actually, if you think about it. And I want to look into that today and the impact that it has on us being able to put our attendees first at events. I want to talk about an event I went to last year. In fact, I was hosting at it. It was a full conference with lots of different sessions. And then during the break times and the lunch times and a few of the sessions, we were also trying to get the attendees to visit a separate hall where sponsors and advertisers and so on had some stands and they were advertising their wares and their services. And it was actually really hard to combine the two elements of the event in a way that the attendees could enjoy their breaks, but also that the advertisers and sponsors actually got to see their potential clients. And that obviously brings up other questions and ideas for another episode about how do you have a conference with a way that keeps sponsors and attendees happy. But let's just stick with the generational issue for this session. But I remember I was getting coffee from one of the stands. That was kind of their selling point, was come to our stand, get coffee, and then we've got you in the room and we can start talking to you. And I was having a chat with some of the people watching the barista making a coffee. And one of them was a young member of the sales team for that stand, for that organization. And he was asking me, really, he was quite horrified. Is this what these things are like? Are they all this boring and crappy where the only way we can get people to come to us is to offer them free coffee or give them sweets or something? Because I can't believe that this is 2024 and this is how business events work. I think it just felt to him an extraordinary way to get grown-ups to engage with you. But it also feels like it's just old-fashioned. It's just silly. It's just not using the opportunity in the best possible way. And it isn't really, certainly for that young man and for many others, the best example of what events could really be. And I could totally see why someone of his age, I think he was about 25, was so horrified that this is how we did things. Now, he wasn't an attendee, but the idea is attendees are getting younger. And of course, at the other end, attendees are getting older. We all stay working in the workplace a lot longer these days. So to look more into what I'm trying to say, it's worth looking at the breakdown of the different generations that are in the workplace right now. Is it actually 5 that are in the workplace? I'm not sure. I think it's probably more 4, but everybody's talking about the 5. So let's start with that. The stuff I'm talking about isn't new by any stretch. There are lots of people who have been talking about this for a while, but I can't see that many people talking about it in terms of events. Certainly when I've done a quick Google about it, events that work for multi-generational groups of people, there isn't that much about it there. So that's why I've thought about doing this episode on it. I think the danger is we do tend to think of our audiences as some big mass of people coming, and we don't consider them as individual humans, let alone people with different needs and learning styles and ages. So the generational lineup looks something like this, apparently. You have the traditionalists or the silent generation, born before 1945. They are generally known for a strong work ethic, discipline, and a preference for face-to-face communication. And while they may be retiring from the workforce, they still play quite key roles, especially in industries where you'll see people with a longer career span. You then have the baby boomers, born between 1946, 1964, known as boomers. You'll probably have heard your kids talk about boomers a lot. And they're known, boomers, as people who value loyalty and experience and a sense of community. They have seen the rise of technology, but they still tend to prefer the traditional formats that we have in events like keynote presentations over more sort of fluid, spontaneous type experiences in events. Then you have Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980. They're kind of the bridge between the old school and the new school. Generation X tend to value independence, direct communication, and a mix of digital and in-person interactions. I'm Generation X, in case you hadn't worked that out. So millennials come next, or also known as Generation Y, and they were born between 1981 and 1996. So your millennials are the digital natives. They crave instant access to information. They value experiences normally over things, and they're really big on social media. Interactivity is key for them. And then you have Generation Z. So these are kids that are born after 1997. They have grown up in a fully digital world. They are hyper connected. They are more socially conscious. They expect technology to be just integrated seamlessly into their experiences. They have shorter attention spans, and they have a strong preference for visual content. Now, in other episodes, I have talked about the fact that we're all human beings and that we all crave being seen and heard at events. And that is really important, that time is allocated for us to feel safe in events and to rest and all the rest of it. But I think we could take that one step further and really look at how our different ages and our different experiences affected things. So, of course, by putting us all into generations like this, then we are potentially massively generalizing. I think there's a danger you do that far too much when we talk about events, and we kind of take out the humanity, and it's dangerous to stereotype to that degree. But it is an easy way to make sure that you are considering lots of different needs within your event if you do that. Because obviously, if you're providing for a very tech-savvy millennial, you also need to be providing facilities for people that are not tech savvy at all. And that way you're going to kind of catch everyone in between. And it is more unusual, of course, for the older generation traditionalists to be tech savvy. It doesn't mean that there won't be any that are, but they will then find that their needs are catered for in the other group, in the younger group that you're catering for. So ultimately then you are covering it for everybody. I don't know if you've heard about the curb cutting effect, which gets talked about in events. But in case you don't know what that is, it means that when you improve something for one marginalized group, you are actually improving things for everybody. So it's the same idea. If you think about one particular group or lots of different particular groups, somewhere along the line, you'll be making it better for everybody. So forgive me for stereotyping a bit, as I will have to do in this episode. Now, I personally fit a stereotype in many ways. I'm a 53-year-old mother of pretty much grown-ups, the generation, the younger generation that I talked about that's now in the workplace. I prefer talking to texting, and I can never really work all the different crazy TV controls now. But alone amongst a lot of my friends, I really love AI. I use it every day and I'm really fascinated by it. So I don't fit every stereotype. So I now want to talk about understanding the differences. So we've got our lineup there. How do we make sure that we are putting enough things for each of those groups into our events, that we are ticking boxes for every kind of person who might come? So it's good to understand what each generation values and expects, because if we get that, that's half the battle. So for example, traditionalists and baby boomers, they tend to appreciate more of the traditional networking styles. So sit down lunches where you have name cards. Potentially there are themed discussion tables where you can share your wealth of experience. Meanwhile, millennials and Gen Z are more likely to appreciate informal networking opportunities or more fun ones. They might find something with an app that helps them connect with people who share similar interests or allows for impromptu meetups, just like social dating websites and the kind of apps that they're using in their own free time. So if you can get those going at your events, they can be very effective. Generation X, on the other hand, they really value their independence. So they need to have different options. They need to have breakout sessions where they could choose the topics that they want to go to. That will go a long way in keeping them engaged. Now, the tech factor. Obviously, we can't talk about generations without considering technology, because each generation does, I know we're stereotyping, but it has a different relationship with tech. So it's important to find a balance that works across the board. For For Gen Z and millennials, incorporating tech, absolutely, it's a no-brainer. We are talking about event apps, interactive social media walls, live polls, real-time feedback. They are all about the latest gadgets and apps. And if it's new, they're going to want to try it. There doesn't seem to be any fear about new technology in this age group. But for boomers and traditionalists, you might need to offer a bit more support. They might prefer using a simple user-friendly event app, but you need to make sure there's lots of people that can help them with it on site, or if it's a virtual event, that is an easy place for them to click a button and get help. They are the kind of people that still appreciate printouts of schedules and maps alongside the digital versions. And for Gen X, well, most people, Gen X, are more comfortable with technology now, but we value practicality over gimmicks. It will take us a little bit longer maybe to work something out. It's not necessarily as intuitive. And we tend to find that whatever we use most, like, for example, I've got an Apple phone. If your technology looks like Apple and is something easy for me to work with, I'll give it a go. If I go onto your app and it's like, it's not as intuitive as I would find it, I'll probably quickly give up with it. So you need to ensure that whatever tech you're using is going to be really adding value to my experience and not annoying me whilst I'm using it. So let's look now at content delivery events, because I see this is where there's a real difference in getting different generational groups to consume things. The traditionalists and the boomers, they are more likely to appreciate expert-led sessions with in-depth analysis and thought leadership. That's what they're used to. Generation Xers appreciate this too, but they also now want to be able to ask questions and get involved in discussions. Millennials and Gen Z, they really lean towards bite-sized content. You think TED Talk style presentations or interactive workshops where they can really get hands-on. And they also respond well to visually rich content. So video, animations, even virtual reality, avatars, things like that can really grab their attention. Personalization is probably the most important thing here. I believe that no matter what generation you are catering to, everybody appreciates that personal touch. And we now have amazing data, so you can really understand your attendees' preferences. The data should have broken down all the things I've said to you about your event, because you will have very key groups of people coming. You might not have anybody too old coming to your events. You might not have the really young people coming to your events. So a lot of this you should be able to work out if you're getting the right feedback and asking people in the right way for it. So then you tailor your content and your experiences accordingly. And this can be really simple, just a personalized welcome message that's going to match that particular person, or it can be as sophisticated as using AI to suggest the sessions and networking opportunities that will be based on the interests and the ages of people. Because the content needs to be accessible to all the people that come to your event. So I bang on about us considering the attendee first in all my sessions. And that's because I believe that this is the way that will make events that all your different audiences are going to enjoy and go away and do whatever it is that you want them to do as a result of coming to the event. Now, traditionalists and the Gen Xers are going to be more likely to put up with events that are the same as last year, because they've kind of been institutionalized into them and they don't maybe know that they're going to enjoy the new way. They will. You have to give them time to get used to it, and they'll probably enjoy it a lot more. We know they'll enjoy it a lot more because it'll be an event that they really get all their needs met. But they are used to going to events where they didn't get all those needs met, but they've accepted them. That's what they're used to. Sometimes you don't want change, even if it's going to be better. And you may feel, well, those are the kind of people that are coming to my events right now. So do you know what? I don't need to change anything. But if that's the case and you don't make the changes, I think you're missing out, because while event planning in this multi-generational world is not easy, it's actually an incredible opportunity. If you understand all the different needs and preferences of your attendees, then you'll really create events that are not only inclusive, but also really innovative, and they will be so much more engaging. It isn't just about ticking the boxes. It's about creating an experience that feels very personal and meaningful to everyone involved. That's all for today's episode of Not the Same as Last Year. I hope you found some of these insights helpful and that they maybe spark some new ideas. If you have got any tips or experiences yourself in dealing with multi-generational audiences, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a line on LinkedIn or joining the conversation on social media. And join me next time when my next episode is going to be with the fabulous David T. Stevens, and we're going to be talking about health and fitness and wellness at our B2B events.
And there you have it. I hope you're inspired to revolutionise the attendee experience at your next event. Ready to dive deeper? Download your free guide, 5 ways to elevate your attendee experience without breaking the bank. The link is in the show notes. Subscribe to Not the Same as Last Year podcast, connect with me, Clare Forestier, on LinkedIn, or visit my YouTube channel for even more tips and insights to make your events a hit with your attendees. Don't forget to leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Your feedback is going to fuel my mission. Stay tuned next week for another episode packed with inspiring ideas and practical strategies to put your attendee first.